Hi everybody, it's Librarian Faith from the Mandel Public Library of West Palm Beach. And today I'm going to show you how to make a catalog bookmark so that you can record all the wonderful books you read this year. Let's get started, shall we? You're going to need a few things in order to do this project. Firstly, you'll need some watercolor paper and some regular cardstock. I recommend having these two different pieces of paper because your cardstock is better for writing on with an ink pen, which is how you record all the books you read, and the watercolor paper is, of course, better for watercolor. You'll also need some watercolor paints. Now you can get this exact lovely watercolor palette with our grab and go kits this month, the watercolor coloring pages. You can request some for free on our catalog. You'll also need a little circular shape that you can trace around, a pair of scissors, a paintbrush and a pencil, some double-sided tape or some other way where you can glue two pieces of paper together, and some water in a cup for rinsing. The first thing we're going to do is take our piece of watercolor paper and cut an extra thick strip straight down to the other side. This will be the base for our cat. There we go. Then, using our circular object, we'll place it near the top of the piece of paper, in the middle, and trace around it with a pencil. I am going to erase this and draw it a little bit lower because you want to make sure you leave enough room for the cat's ears at the top. That's another reason why we use a pencil at this stage, just because it's easy to erase. Okay, a little off center, but I still think it'll work. Then we'll draw our cat ears. To do the cat ears, you want to do it a little bit off to the side, and you'll do a curved triangle. And do them equally on either side. And then you'll do another little curved line on the other side, the far side of the ears. And it should look something like this. Once you're happy with how it looks, you'll take your eraser and erase the little line between the two lines on the farthest edge of the paper. Okay. Then we'll take our scissors again and cut out along the top edge. There we go. And now we have the top part of our cat with the ears. Now we can move on to my favorite part, which is coloring in the cat. Now you can do whatever kind of pattern you want. I do recommend putting a little bit of pink in the inner ears, because I think personally it's adorable. And one of the good parts about watercolor is that it's very buildable. So for the ears, I do an initial layer of pink all over that part of the ear. And then I'll let it dry for a little bit, coming back to it later so that I can add a little bit more pigment in. Definitely want to make sure you rinse your brush off in between colors. Now the last one, I did a calico coloring. I think on this one I'll do a tabby coloring. So I'll get, let's see, I'll do an orange tabby. Get this bright orange color over here. I'll make sure I give it plenty of water to activate the pigment. I'm just going to paint the entire cat orange. You're more than welcome to do whatever kind of coloring you want. If you have a cat, I highly recommend copying them. It makes it extra fun and personal. But whatever kind of pattern you want, go for it. Okay, you can see how the paper is curving quite a bit right now. That's because it's quite wet. You want to let it dry for just a second and then put a book on top of it, and that'll help press it flat. The bigger the book, the better. I happen to have a bunch of old medical dictionaries that the library tweeted because they are quite old, and those will work perfect. But before we let it dry under a book for a little bit, let's go ahead and add on some more of the orange stripes to make it an orange tabby rather than just a regular orange cat. And you can do it however, we just want to be evocative of a cat. Okay, so I'm going to add a little bit of this brown color, I think. And I recommend testing out a color to make sure you like it before putting it on your final product if you're unsure of it. I'm just going to use this one, a little dark. Let's see, try this kind of brick color. There we go. Using the scraps we cut off when we were doing the ears is an easy way to have some extra scrap watercolor paper to test out the color before you put it on your product. There we go. He's already flattening out a little bit. We'll just set this dude off to the side so it can dry for a second. And we'll work on the tail. You can see I have a little bit of a mess here from where I was painting, so I'm just going to grab a napkin and clean it right up. If you get any watercolor pigment on a table, like I did, just grab a napkin and dip it in a little bit of water and it'll pop right out. Watercolor isn't like acrylic in that the pigment isn't horribly strong and won't stick onto surfaces like this. If you get it on your clothes, they will dye it a little bit, but generally it's a much safer for your furniture pigment than other types of paint. But now we're going to go ahead and cut out a tail. I'm using the leftover part of the watercolor paper, and I'm going to go about halfway up the page in a wiggly line for the tail. And we want this to be a decently thick tail, just so it shows up clearly on our cat. And we're curving it back down around. Okie dokie. Now we can go ahead and paint in our tail as well, using the same colors we used earlier. Went a little overboard on the water on the tail, but that's fine. We're just going to let it dry off to the side for a little bit, wiping up our pigment. There we go. Now I'm going to check in to see if our main cat is dry. Not quite. We have a couple little spots that are still a bit damp. You can see it's dried very flat, and I didn't even have to use a book. So while we're waiting for that last part to dry, we can go ahead and cut out the belly as well. Now the belly is going to be made out of white cardstock. And much like the body of the cat, we're going to cut a thick chunk, though not as thick as the cat. So you can use it to sort of eyeball for a reference. Be about in the middle, so be about there. And we'll cut all the way up. We'll set our cat back off to the side. Now that we have this piece of paper, we'll go ahead and use our rounded edge and a pencil so that we can cut two nice circular edges. You want to cut slightly inside the line. That way you don't see any of the pencil show up in the final product. I'm going to round off the edges a little bit. For this part, that part you just want to eyeball it. We'll do this other side. And rounding the edges. Cutting just below the pencil marks. And there we go, we have our cat's belly. Now the belly is where we'll be writing all of the books we read this year. And we have it in a bookmark shape just so it's easy to keep track of. Although for when you're reading ebooks or audiobooks, you want to remember where you put your catalog so that you'll be able to mark those down as well. Check back in on our cat. See one stripe that I put a little bit too much water in. So I'm going to take my napkin and I'm just going to blot it. That lifts up some of the pigment and some of the water. And it'll help it dry a little bit faster. We'll set it back off to the side and I will see y'all in a minute or two. Be right back. And we're back. Now we can go ahead and flip our cat over and go ahead and paint in the back side. Now technically you don't have to do this part, but I say why not? More painting is always more fun. And we'll just repeat the same process that we did on the front. We'll cover the entire bookmark in orange, and then we'll do some darker orange and some reddish stripes. And there we go. Now that we have the back finished painting, we can go ahead and let it dry for a little bit, and then we'll be back to put on the finishing touches. See you in another few minutes. You want to go ahead and take your tail, flip it over, and add some of the double-sided tape to it. Now if you don't have double-sided tape, you could use glue dots or some regular Elmer's glue or even some Scotch tape as long as you roll it up. I'm using the double-sided tape because it is a bit easier to apply, and I have it available. So we're going to take it and apply it to the middle and back of our catalog bookmark. Now our cat has a cute little tail on the back, and we can flip it over to the front and add the belly, which is where we'll record our books. So I'll go ahead and take my slip of cardstock and repeat that process of applying some more double-sided tape. There we go. I'll want to put it nice and neat and even in the middle of our kitty cat. And there we go, our catalog bookmark. Now you can go ahead and write in your 2021 reading goals or any books you might have read already, or you can just leave it blank and go ahead and put it in your book and wait for the reading adventures you'll go on. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Be sure to tune again later this month for another one. And until then, happy reading!